Welcome to the online video resources for head and neck by numbers. My name is Felicia Sigurd, and I am a dental hygienist and the author of Head and Neck by Numbers. I will also be your guide through the names, locations, and relationships outlined in the text. So let's start with how we use the text. It is very important that you do not write the names on the pictures. The whole point is that you're going to write the number that associates with the other page. So then you can flip it around with that coil binding and just look at the image and quiz yourself. So we'll go through, if you're looking at figure 1, the way it would work is I would say number 1 is superior, and on the screen will flash the image of what you need to color. Now, these videos were made to be short, so I'm not going to just stand here while you color, so feel free to pause me, color, and then start again. Now, we have to get something straight. I am not giving you the grade for this class. So if you find that there's a discrepancy between my book and what your teacher tells you, go with your teacher, okay? But other than that, I think that your teacher and I are both helping you to be a better student and learn anatomy in fun and interesting and hopefully helpful ways. Figure number 4 is the detailed views of the mandible and the temporal bone. Number 1 is the articulating surface of the condyle. This is the portion of the mandible that's going to articulate with the temporal bone. Number 2 is the pterygoid fovea. We're going to learn about some of the different indentations and holes in the mandible. And this one is the favorite because the fovea is at the very top, the pterygoid fovea. Number 3 is the mandibular foramen. This is the entrance to the mandibular canal. But it's not the mandibular nerve that goes through it, it's the inferior alveolar nerve. You're going to learn a lot about that one. So inferior alveolar nerve and the inferior alveolar artery. Number 4 is the lingula. It's a little piece of bone that overhangs the mandibular foramen. Number 5 is the mandibular canal. This canal runs all the way underneath every tooth in the mandible. Number 6 is the coronoid notch. This notch is an important landmark later on for local anesthesia. Number 7 is the mental tubercle. If you haven't gotten the hint already, mental is related to your chin, and so the tubercle is the piece that comes out the farthest. I like to remember that as if you had tuberculosis, then what you're going to cover is your mental tubercle. Number 8 is the mental foramen with the mental nerve and the mental artery. Number 9 is the body of the mandible. This constitutes the entire bottom section of your mandible. Number 10 is the oblique line. It's a little indentation on the outside of the mandible. I like to think that you work your obliques on your waistline, and so the oblique line is right there on the side also. Number 11 is the angle of the mandible. This is the junction between the body of the mandible and this upper section which we're about to talk about. Number 12 is the ramus of the mandible. It is the perpendicular section. It's connected to the body of the mandible by the angle. Number 13 is the coronoid process. Number 14 is the mandibular notch. Number 15 is the neck of the condyle, and number 16 is the condyle. Now here's an easy way to keep yourself from getting screwed up between the coronoid process and the condyle. Just think to yourself, you have to eat your corn before you can have any candy. Moving on with the temporal bone. It's divided into 3 portions. The first of which is number 17, the squamous portion of the temporal bone. This is a large, flat section. I like to think that it's been squashed. Number 18 is the tympanic portion of the temporal bone. That includes your external acoustic meatus, where you could hear a timpani for your tympanic portion. Number 19 is the petromastoid portion of the temporal bone. I remember this one because it has the mastoid process in it. Number 20 is the zygomatic process. This is the little portion of the temporal bone that sticks out and articulates with the zygomatic bone. Number 21 is the articular eminence. This is an important part of the temporomandibular joint. It's the most anterior portion of the joint, and it makes sure that the condyle doesn't go too far forward and get your jaw stuck. So that's the articular eminence. Number 22 is the articular fossa. This is where the condyle of the mandible articulates, in the articular fossa. But they can get a little tricky to keep straight. So you have the eminence and then the fossa. So just think, E comes before F in the alphabet. Number 23 is the last portion of the temporomandibular joint that we're going to talk about. It is called the postglenoid process. This is the bone that sits on the back side so that the condyle doesn't slide too far posterior. Number 24 is the petrotympanic fissure. This small fissure is where the chorda tympani nerve comes out. Remember that one because we're going to talk a lot about the chorda tympani. Number 25 is the styloid process. Easy to remember because it looks like a stylus. Number 26 is the external acoustic meatus. And number 27 is the mastoid process.